So from my journey of the universe leading me away from my very successful building business into the unknown world as a child, if you like, and a sponge, and the progression from there to take me across the world to Australia, to reintroduce me to what I believe is, I would say calling, but it's my destiny, if you like, to do it. And I really wanted to go out and teach, but the universe, different plans. It was about raising the standard, bringing people together, getting this wonderful modality that is Reiki, to facilitate self-healing, and to have it accepted as a standalone modality into mainstream healthcare, and still always maintain it as a spiritual practice.
Welcome, I'm Diana Fels, and thanks for joining me. I'm passionate about helping people to transform for their own light to shine. I'm super excited to be in Melbourne, Australia today with John Coleman. And John Coleman I've met through the Reiki's journey, and he was originally from Ireland and came over about 22 plus years ago, and he joined the Reiki, Australian Reiki Connection, and through that I got to meet them. And from that he also became the president of the Australian Reiki Connection as well, and I've had some very interesting and challenging things that have come up in Reiki in my journey, and I've asked him many things, and he's been awesome to answer that and also be that sounding board to, help guide you in some way. So welcome.
Thank you, Diana. And I think that's what the Reiki Connection is all about.
Yeah.
Supporting, helping, and improving. It's been an interesting journey.
Yeah. So what I first thought I'd start with is I love people's journeys, and sometimes there's some amazing things how people got into Reiki, or just journeys in essential. So can you speak about what got you into Reiki, or how you got into Reiki?
Okay, well, first of all, it was like many people, the last thing on my mind, because I've never heard of it. Most of my working life in Ireland was as a self-employed building contractor.
Okay, yeah.
So that didn't lean itself toward natural healing therapies. But as a result of an incident in the mid-90s, I ended up with total amnesia.
Oh, wow.
So I lost my entire past life, retrograde amnesia. So I knew nothing, I knew nobody, I remembered nothing, and I was stuck. And it lasted for 2 years, 5 months and 21 days.
Wow.
So during that time I had to, first of all, adapt. And then I had to do something that I now realize was probably fate, that I had to live my life one day at a time. I had no worries, I had no doubts, I had no fears, I had no inhibitions. I could do anything because I didn't know I couldn't.
Yeah, awesome.
And like during that time, I lost my business after such a long time because I was the guy who ran it and worked it and did not the manual labor, but all the back end and top end stuff. And then during that time I became a commercial model because somebody said, why don't you try modeling? And I did. And I got lots and lots of work out of that, and I said, I can do this. And that was fine. But when my memory came back, it was a different story. Because when you lose your memory, you don't know what it is you've lost. But when it comes back, it's scary, horrible. So naturally, the first thing I had to do, and I said, for a long time I was living in two worlds. One of the now moment, today, all of this, working with what I now know to have been the energy. So I started another company. One day during a meeting, this lady came up and said, I just done Reiki. Let me show you. And she got me to lie face down and started putting her hands on me and moving them all around the place. And I'm going, crazy lady. And she said, what are you feeling? What are you feeling? What are you feeling? And I said, it's lovely. But I was feeling nothing. And so we left it at that. But then about a week or so later, one of my fellow directors said that she was going on a Reiki workshop. And one of the things I learned during my amnesia phase was synchronicity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I heard something more than once, or it was relevant to something, I would follow through. So I asked, could I go as well? And she contacted the teacher, and there was a space left, and yes. So that was an eye-opener. And the level 1 class spoke a lot about the history of for today only. And I'm saying I can relate to this. And it spoke about, energy and the history of it and all that, and I could relate to that. But an interesting thing happened when it came to doing the hands-on practice. We were each working on another student, and we were given the hand positions, the sequence of hand positions to use. And so I sat down at the head, and I started at the head, and did it over the eyes, and then I did it here. And then I got stuck. I couldn't move my hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was watching everybody else, and they were going through all the techniques, and I couldn't move my hands, and they stayed there. And I felt this incredible heat. I figured I was doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And I looked up at the teacher, and he just nodded and smiled. And so we finished the practice. And later on, I said to him, I'm sorry, I couldn't move my hands. He says, that's okay. And then the following day, the student that I was working on came up and thanked me. And I said, why? He said, after your treatment, I had such clarity. And the teacher and them, they told me that he had a lot of, shall we say, issues within his head.
Yeah.
That was going on, and he was in a terrible state. So that made me think. And then a couple of months later, I did level 2. After the attunement process of that, I just felt this whole wave of energy. And so I was mightily impressed, but having to restart my life and earn money and an income to support a family, I then decided I wasn't going to do anything with it.
Okay. Yep.
In 2000, I came on a holiday to Australia, and I went way up into the Dandenong Ranges. And in the middle of the forest where my friend's house was, I just felt this draw, this energy, this connection. And I said, wow, I've got to be here. But I couldn't afford to be here, so I went home again, and synchronicity, life, put everything in my way, inheritances, all sorts of things. So I was able to settle up everything and set people up in Ireland and moved to Australia. And when I came here, I just had this whole connection. And then Reiki started coming back into my life in many different ways. And so I decided I learned more, and I went to do a class with a teacher. And I did a class, just picked somebody local. It was an eye-opener, because what was being taught was not what I knew to be Reiki. There was a lot of stuff there that wasn't Reiki. And I left disappointed. So then I went looking for others, and then I figured, like everything else, I looked for an association. And that's when I came across the Australian Reiki connection. And it was the word connection that attracted me. And to digress a little, it was actually a similar thing with Paul Mitchell from the Reiki Alliance. When he spoke at the International Reiki Conference in 2015, he said, I agreed to do this. I don't know why. I don't know these people. But when I saw connection, that drew me.
Okay.
And so I had the same effect. And then I joined them. I came to one or two of their gatherings. And I found a teacher, and I learned much more, much better, much more interesting. Not that any other ways are wrong, but it's just what felt right to me. And so I was very attracted to this association. And so much so that that was in 2022. I joined, I think in 2023, I volunteered to go on the committee. Around that time, there was a lot of skeptics about it. Reiki was being attacked left, right, and centre, especially from a skeptics group in Queensland. And I said, why aren't we talking back? Why aren't we refuting all this? And nobody was taking it up, so I did. I joined forums and discussed it back and forth with them and pointed out what they were saying wasn't true, etc. And then in the end, I just decided, you know, I'm just feeding them.
Yeah.
So I stopped. And I just sent Reiki to them.
Yeah.
They're still around.
Yeah.
Didn't change their mind, was brought a calmness and peace.
Yeah.
And then I focused on the standards for Reiki and getting at that time ARC, as it's commonly known, was the first association to get health funds on board to provide rebates for Reiki treatments. We were the first group to get Reiki mentioned in the golden page or the yellow pages here. And so I approached more health funds, and I decided then that I'd make this submission on the benefits and the fundamentals and facts about Reiki. And so I took a long time and presented a 156-page document to every health fund that I could lay my hands on or find, and sent it off. And one or two more came on board. But then eventually, as health funds were taken over, multinationals came in, or things like that, Reiki was just dropped. Easy target. And I think one of the people that came was from Medicare Private, or Medibank Private, and they were mightily impressed with what they had seen. And they came out then to do an audit of the association, because if you're going to be an association, you have to be a proper professional association. So they came out, we ticked all the boxes, and they pointed out a few things that we could improve on for standard's sake, and we did. And I said, great, well look, we'll be back in touch. And about 2 weeks later, the goalposts changed. And it was that the training of Reiki practitioners, the standards, they just weren't there, and so they pulled out. And I think Defence Health was the last health fund to pull out refunds for Reiki treatments. And so from then on, I just started looking and working, and I opened my own practice as a Reiki practitioner. I had people coming from far and near, because, as I said, I actually moved then to the Davenant Ranges, which is way off the beaten track.
Nowhere near here.
Nowhere near civilization, some
right
people would say.
At the moment.
But I had clients coming, and such a variety of people who had heard about this thing and this mad Irishman, somehow people put it. But I learned a lot of interesting stories. Some people came to be cured.
Okay,
I remember one guy, he came in and he said, I just want you to know I'm a skeptic and I don't believe in any of this. And I said, well, why have you come? He said, my wife told me to.
Okay. Well,
And he said, I have arthritis in my toes and I want it cured. So he explained, it's not a cure. Why don't we try treatment and see how it goes? We gave him the treatment, and at the end of it he said, I'll come back and give you another shot.
Okay.
So he came back, and he actually came on a regular basis for about 3 months. And then he went into hospital and had his bones fused together, or whatever they do with arthritis. And then when he came back to me, I said, why didn't you do that in the beginning? And he said, I was afraid. And he said, since I've been coming here, a lot of things have shifted in my life. People who I was having great difficulty with at work have moved on. My work life has become easier, I've got promoted. I found the strength to overcome my fear and go and have the operation. And for me, that not that I needed validation, but that was just a little validation of how Reiki can facilitate self-healing.
Yeah.
I call myself a facilitator of self-healing. And I stayed at that for a long time. And then in 2004, the founder and first president of ARC, Wendy Joy Smith, who'd been there for 7 years, said that she needed to retire. She needed a rest. And she asked me if I would consider taking over. Not knowing anything about what a president of an association does. I've been on the committee, I was doing all of this, and it was just advocating for Reiki, and I said sure. So I shadowed her, if you like, for a while. We went around and we gave talks. I gave talks at various different places and things, met different people, and then she retired and gave me the 2-drawer filing cabinet and a plastic bag full of paper.
Okay. like you can get the shoebox with all the...
Well, I was waiting for all the receipts in the shoebox, yeah.
That's what you give the accountant, don't you? The shoebox. Here you go, you can work it out.
So there was, in fairness now, back then it was a different world, if you like, in Reiki with everything that was going on and people just joining an association. And if the truth be told, a lot of people joined just to get cheap insurance. And they were not doing Reiki, they were off doing other things. But because they could get cheap insurance by being a member of an association like ours, they went and did it, you know. So over the years, the committee in ARC has changed many times, but there's been a core group of committee members streamlined the situation, tightened up on it, rewrote application forms, did a whole lot of stuff, and it wasn't just a matter of paying your money and coming. So people had to meet criteria, and we rejected a lot of applicants at the time, but we did the right thing.
Yeah, we kept it pure. You kept the association where it should be, companies.
Yes.
That's what association should be. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that, and then because, as I said, the health funds were pulling out and insurance companies, nobody wanted to know about it, and so I decided I'd start that little process again, and I contacted the umbrella body of insurers and health funds. I met with one of them and he spoke and he talked, and he said, yeah, look, it's great, it's wonderful, I've heard so many things, but he says, look, we've got stories of people learning Reiki online and going out the following day and treating people and teaching and doing things and learning, you know, all this stuff at the weekend, and we can't. And so I said, okay. The end result of it is there's a lot of new things haven't done away, but in 2012 the committee decided that we would do a review, a survey into teaching Reiki.
Yep.
We did that for 3 years and got a lot of feedback and input and we only approached the Reiki Master Teacher members, and we got a lot of feedback, a lot of input, and lots of disagreement. But in the end, we all agreed that we needed to maintain the core basic values of the Yasui system of Reiki. And so we came up with what is now known as the ARC criteria for the teaching of Reiki. And we launched that in 2015. And since then, between 2015 and 2017, anybody who was applying to become a teaching member, a category member of an association, had to provide a copy of the workbook, the manual that we're providing to students. Not because we were controlling or being the Reiki police, but because of the stories I've heard, my own experience of what was being taught, as being Reiki and as what Mikhail Usui taught and pioneer Muslims. When I got a lot of the manuals in, some were lovely, fine, great. Others were just a mishmash of photocopies.
Out of a book. A library book.
Out of a book. And it actually fed me in because the business that I started to go back after my amnesia was a copyright protection business. And so I knew a lot about copyright protection, and I was able to point out to these people that they were plagiarizing somebody else's work. That had an effect on some people who were ethical, and others it didn't matter. But they could not become a teaching category member of the association unless their manuals met with the core basic values. Now, it didn't mean that they couldn't add on other things, because we're never going to be stopped even adding things on. But what we wanted was for them to say that these are add-ons, these are additions that my teacher taught me. These come from a different form, you know, whether it be Raku Reiki or Pet Reiki or whatever. But we're not going to stop people teaching these things, because that's the Reiki base. But what we say is this is the core basics. This is what you must teach, this is what you may teach, and this is what you must not teach. And overall, they accepted it and they were grateful and appreciated it. That eventually led to ARC coming up with genetic templates, Reiki manuals. So we have a generic Reiki manual for level 1 and level 2, which covers the basics, the core values, and then the teacher has an option to add in other stuff, but it's clearly defining what it is. And that's been quite useful, because a lot of teachers hand out their manuals, and some people, believe it or not, don't want their students to use them. They have to write their own manual, which can be a good thing, but they don't know what to do.
No, and then you sort of start blurring it, changing it, and then you're not teaching what that teacher taught, or the actual lineage. So it's like Chinese whispers.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah, Chinese whispers it is, because they start adding things in. I said, oh, wait, but I thought that was what was taught, and I understood that. Then I read this in a book, so I'll add that in.
But that's not what you were taught. So you get blurred.
Yeah. So it's been that journey that continues today. Because now, if we are going to refer the teacher of Reiki through our public referral directory system, at least the overall majority of them have submitted a manual. We've approved what it is they're teaching. It's not the spiritual practice of what they're teaching, it's just the basics, the facts. Now, we had a grandfather clause in 2015, because with hundreds of members, I couldn't go through everybody's manuals. So we allowed some, but over the years, those teachers' manuals and their students have come, and some have been corrected, others are fine, and that's how it's been working with the criteria for the teaching. And then to further add to the raising of the standards for practitioners, one of our committee, Sule Karas, developed with committee, and that what do you call it? It's a non-accredited Reiki certificate, because it's Reiki treatment delivery and business skills. Because I would be forever getting people ringing up and saying, I've learned Reiki now, how do I go about setting up business? What do I do?
That's not a Reiki association. Like, I'm part of it, because I've got buckets and things. The association is not about the business, it's about the
spiritual practice of Reiki.
Like it's like accountants, they'll talk about the accounting things, but it's not about setting up a business. So you need to source that elsewhere. So then you get the words sometimes what they think you should help.
But at the same time, we've helped many people to do it because they were genuine. They wanted to do it, and if they were going to do it, we wanted them to do it right. And when government came about starting a code of conduct for, the first one came out, it was for unregistered healthcare practitioners.
Yep.
That was in 2006, and I attended the workshops as a stakeholder for the Reiki Association, ARC. And when I went to that meeting, there were all these people from different things, massage, government departments, the Skills Council, who write these courses and units. And I put my hand up and I says, but what about Reiki? He says, we have that covered in massage. And I said, but Reiki's not massage. I said, look, it's much the same. So I can tell you, I had an interesting discussion because being an Irishman, I did not back down. And I explained in great detail the difference. As a result, Reiki was one of the modalities included in the Code of Conduct for unregistered healthcare practitioners.
Okay.
And while I understand unregistered being in it, it was a very derogatory type of thing.
Yeah.
But you're not registered. But what people don't realise is that you can't be a registered Reiki practitioner because Reiki is not one of the bodies, a registration body. You know, like nurses or doctors or medical things. And a lot of the others have a registration board, and there's no such thing for Reiki. But they left it and it was fine. We got some things excluded, and then ARC did that in every state and territory that was working on a national on a code of conduct at that time. In WA, in South Australia, in Queensland, we were there. And when it came to Victoria, the COAG meeting, the government ministers, they all came together and agreed that they were going to do a national code to standardise it. So we were there, and I went to several meetings with the Skills Council, with the relevant departments, and we got the word unregistered removed, and it's now the Code of Conduct for Healthcare Services. I think it's called the National Code. It's called that.
That sounds better.
Because it encompassed receptionists, it encompassed anybody who's doing a health service, whatever it may be, professional and complementaries. I also managed to get a clause removed because up to then others had, in order to provide a therapy or a service, you had to have a clinical basis for providing it. And I remember contacting South Australia, New South Wales, and one of the others, and asked them to please define what they mean by a clinical basis. The short answer is they didn't know. I said Reiki is a spiritual practice. It's non-invasive, non-manipulative. It's the client is fully clothed. The research into it is there, but it always requires more research, and the funding is not there to do that research. But they actually removed that clause, and so it's no longer a requirement in the code. So all our members are asked to abide by the National Code of Conduct for Healthcare Services, which includes naturally having insurance, but it also includes having first aid, HLTARD, or 111. And you know, I keep getting asked, but if Reiki can do no harm, why do I need first aid? And it's a logical question.
It's basic care for someone on your property. It's like, do you care?
Well, exactly.
It's the business aspect.
Yeah.
It's not about the spiritual. That's very different. If you're going to business, you're going to have the business stuff with the work.
You know, and we said, like, if somebody had a seizure on the table or a heart attack, how do you deal with it?
Tripped over the carpet.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Or maybe there's something else. You know, and it's the kind of ethics or just ethical work. Well, you got to think of it as like we work elderly, we work with children, we've got all these national cards to work with. But it's like, you know, you're working with someone who's still in a position, like a teacher. You know, in those positions, they've got to have a duty of care, an ethics, a certain standard. Like regardless of what modality you're doing.
Correct. And for that reason, we insist on all of our members having that. And we can often ask, I'm a nurse, I don't need it. Or I'm a paramedic, I don't need it. And they're Reiki practitioners, they're members of the association. And I point out, it states clearly in the code, if you are providing service outside of what your normal training has been, you must have a first aid certificate.
And it's not just Reiki, because that might be seen as medical, sort of aging on the medical side. But as a counsellor, you have to, I can't have my insurance unless I've done life first aid and all those things.
Yes.
I can't have my provided other. Now, I'm not technically doing a medical thing, but it's a medical field.
Yeah, it's a service.
So yes, I still have to cover that.
So that's what we're doing. And I've also co-written and worked with another art member on a course that they're on our website, history courses, for training Reiki practitioners to work in palliative care and end-of-life training, which is a different scenario when you're dealing with patients like that.
I've had a few, and I knew that's where they came in towards the end. I knew that's where it's going, and there's, it's not that you can pray and make something different, but to hold that space for the whole entire group of your clientele, that just takes a lot of resilience. Like in young days, I did went out to palliative care and ACT and I got on board, but they had the hospital, and the hospital had say of what happens.
Yes.
So, and I should have followed up the next year because they're all on board. They all were on board, and I'm bringing it out there doing this. But later reflections were working with cancer patients and end of life, and they go, maybe doing that every week, even though it was once a fortnight for half a day. I don't know how it's going holding that space, because after a while, it's not that, we see someone change and get better and all these wonderful things.
And we're human.
And you've got to have a certain resilience. If you have a tendency that your heart goes out, sort of, it's that, it takes a certain person to be able to hold that all the time, all example. That's the whole entire long term.
And if you're working in a hospital, you have to work around everybody. And I mean, there are a number of hospitals in Australia that allow Reiki treatments. Western Australia is ahead of the possibly with that. There's about 5 hospitals, 1 or 2 in Victoria. There's the famous where I started, and outside it was a local hospice up in the hills, Fairgate House, which is, they are providing Reiki treatments in the house. They go out to visit patients and clients in the homes, and Reiki practitioners are going out there to do that. And that was an eye-opener for me when I was doing it in that, because that was the first time I'd worked in palliative care. And I remember once 2 things happened. One, I was working on this lovely gentleman. He was agitated, like some people can be when they're living with that fatal condition. And after Reiki treatment, he would calm down, and then he would talk. And part of the service in that one place was to listen. And he talked and shared, and he said he told me things that he never shared with anybody. And I always remember the last session I gave him. He said, "I am at peace." When I went back the following week, I learned he passed away. He passed away the following day. And I said, "Oh my God, what have I done? What have I done?"
But you probably give him some, it's like you've given something that's now he can go with next.
He was at peace, and he allowed it. And then another time I had this lady, because when they came in, new ones, the nurse in charge would ask them if they want a Reiki treatment, and they'd say, "What is it?" And I would then be called on and I'd explain it. And depending on who I was talking to, I'd describe it in different ways. to suit what they're hearing. But this one lady, I came in, she had her Reiki session, came out, and the following week she refused. And I said, that's no problem, that's okay. And later on I asked the nurse why or what happened, and she said after the last session she just felt so relaxed. She was afraid because she needed to fight this, and she was going to keep on fighting, and if she was relaxed she couldn't fight it. Well, right, but that was her journey, that's how she coped, and that was fine, you know. But it's interesting, and when I mentioned Western Australia, the Dr. David Chusky, who at the time was the head of hematology, found patients coming to him who were in a far better condition than they should have been based on their prognosis. And he found out, the short version of it is that they were having complementary therapies, and he looked into it, and he opened what's now called the Solaris Cancer Foundation. And Reiki treatments are part of the complementary therapies we provide. And I remember David one time giving a talk to doctors. And I actually have it up on the ARC website. And he said, I remember the most controversial therapy we provide is Reiki. Now, he described it as hands-off massage. I allowed him. Because he was working with it. And he said, I always remember I had on my rounds one day, there was this surgeon who was terminally ill, and he was agitated and angry and frustrated, and didn't want any visitors, didn't want to go home to his family, didn't want to do anything. And David said, well, Dr. Jusky, that's the title, he said, look, why don't you go down to one of the rooms and have a Reiki treatment? And that was on the Thursday. And then he said, on the Saturday when I was doing my rounds, he came up to me, the surgeon, and he said, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Thank you. I now feel the strength and peace to go home to my family and to die. Now that was a surgeon speaking. So Reiki knows of no bounds. And so to this day I'm still passionate about it. I'm still passionate about raising the awareness of it, raising the standards, having it accepted. Only recently I wrote to every Minister of Health in the state and territory, once again outlining the facts and the benefits of Reiki treatments. I've had acknowledgements, but I'm still waiting to hear back, but I will follow up on it. Even if they don't do anything, they've read it. I mean, I remember years ago when they were doing a review into natural therapies for the rebate scheme, and Reiki wasn't in the scope. But I still sent in a large volume of information in the submission. And Professor Nagoli was doing it as assistant, and said, look, it's not in the scope, this is fascinating stuff. And it sows the seed. And I think the more people who hear about it, the more people who experience it, because that's the best way to understand it, that it will go that way.
Yeah, I think when people experience it, they come to their own realizations and they feel comfortable.
Yes, even the skeptics.
Yeah, I know. Had a few of them, and just even people who have come because it's their last stop, because they've tried everything else and they're just willing to try anything because someone suggested it. Not really wanting to know much about it, but then they have a session and they've obviously felt something. They may not talk much, and then they later go, what a book in, and go, okay, well, obviously they got something, and it worked.
I remember Dr. Anna Pedersen, who was a research doctor in the St. Charles Gardner Hospital, at our 2010 conference. I think she spoke, and she relayed about the 8 years that they've been providing complementary therapies research. But she said with the Reiki, the one thing that stood out for them was the quality of life being provided to patients, and that stuck with me. And to this day, it may not cure, it can heal, it can facilitate self-healing, but it can certainly give quality of life to people in those circumstances.
And quality to what's needed for them.
Correct.
Not necessarily what they come and present you. So it's interesting because, you know, we all think, oh, it's the body, but sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's, you know, negative stuff, or they just kind of say, oh, yeah, it's not so foggy with thoughts and stuff, and they just go out and do now, or things around them just seem to change, and that's given a flow-on effect, and now they feel a lot better about it, and, you know, it could be more than just the physical body, or X marks the spot that's where you need to hold.
Yeah.
It's something else.
Yes, we know Reiki works on the whole person,
Yeah.
and one affects the other.
Yeah.
I think conventional medicine is coming around to that. There's a lot of talk about prevention, and particularly, which is the timing was right for getting all these letters to the health ministers about mental health issues. I've quoted facts of a large percentage of presenting illnesses to doctors and hospitals is stress related. Anxiety, stress, depression. And as you and I know, and anybody who practices Reiki and has been becoming, it helps reduce stress, anxiety. We have more and more nurses now doing it.
Yeah, and I see that quite a lot, because it doesn't matter whether you have got mental health or you just a little bit of stress, sadness, and all the stuff that happens. We'll have some form of sadness or, you know, real long pivotal form of anxiety at times, but I just notice it does be more relaxed and more focused, and some days you can get up and start moving, and rather than just sitting the whole entire night on the couch and not do anything. So it just gets you starting to go again. And because I've got a counselling background and coaching, I get people who gravitate toward me who have got the really serious, heavy-duty clinical stuff. They have their psychologists and psychotics, because I won't go there. But they have said how much it helps them, because it helps the fogginess, it helps the chatter in the head, it helps the stories. They seem to be able to function a bit more. So yeah, it does a whole lot more than we think.
Oh, look, it does. I mean, I'm sure you and I have so many stories we could relate. Another thing that struck me as well and made an impact on me was when I visited the hospital, one of the people had stage 4 Parkinson's disease, and uncontrollable shaking, and couldn't talk, couldn't swallow. Basically, come in, he'd be driven in and sat there so that his wife, who was also his carer, could have a break. But after just standing behind him with my hands on his shoulders, after a few minutes, the shaking diminished, the shaking stopped. And for the rest of the day, the nurse and the staff would tell me that he was holding a conversation. And his wife, which would come in originally and he asked her permission because she was his carer and he couldn't to the toilet. She was reluctant and skeptical and everything else. And I'm pleased to say, without divulging any unethical behaviour, she became a regular Reiki client, you know, to help her with the stress of it all.
And it's not always about we've got a condition or we're wanting something ourselves. I have a lot of therapists who do it for their own wellness.
Yes.
Yeah, because they're holding space for some heavy-duty stuff, far heavier than me, but they come for the Reiki because it's part of, it's almost like having a massage. It's like part of their wellness package to help them stay in check, so they're grounded and centered and can hold the space for what they need to do for people they want to work with.
I agree, and I encourage, you know, when people call me health practitioner, whatever, and, you know, and say to someone, depending on the conversation, when did you last have a Reiki treatment? I said, go have one, you know, because it's important. It's called self-care, caring for the carer, all of these things.
And it's true, because when you start going into your own business, that is hard enough, let alone being a therapist who doesn't let a woman modality, and you barely have enough time for yourself. And if you're training on top of that, and you do forget about yourself, because, you know, if you're lucky enough to go training group with an odd number you get on the table, but most time sometimes you're worrying about the people you're training because they pay
Yes.
to come see you, and unless you get to a treat, which you might do once a year, yeah, there is that like, well, what about me?
Yeah. And I think that's hugely important. And as I said, so for my journey of the universe leading me away from my very successful building business into the unknown world as a child, if you like, and a sponge, and the progression from there to take me across the world to Australia, to reintroduce me to what I believe is, I would say calling, but it's my destiny, if you like, to do it. And I really wanted to go out and teach, but the universe, different plans. It was about raising the standard, bringing people together, getting this wonderful modality that is Reiki, to facilitate self-healing, and to have it accepted as a standalone modality to mainstream healthcare, and still always maintain it as a spiritual practice.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that you are teaching in a different way. Like it came in a different way. It's not like the structure, like you put logic hat on and you put yourself in a box and you go, right, I'm going to teach Reiki, I'm going to put hands on people as a practitioner, I'm going to teach Reiki, but you teach in a different way. So that did come in.
That's true, actually, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm a teacher.
Yeah, but from a different sense, you're teaching a wider big bucket of things, going, okay, what's good practice, or what is your shoeies, what's not, because in the conversation that I've had, there's some weird Reiki stuff that I've come across, and they'll send it to you, and then sometimes you haven't heard, and you go, oh, I haven't heard, did you get that? Oh yeah, we've never seen that either. And you go,
But I'll research it.
You research it
I'll
and work
research
it.
it.
And from that, I'm a good student, so I'm writing it down, going, okay, so then I'm making my little tables everywhere. Because obviously sometimes you see something similar again somewhere else, so you learn from that. So you are teaching.
I mean, what people don't realise there's about 80 to 100 different forms of Reiki out there. And I respect every one of them, and I respect people's right to choose whichever works for them, because at the end of the day, healing is healing, energy is energy. But what Art is dealing with is the Usui system of Reiki. It's the system developed by Usui and then followed by Hayashi, Takata, Inamoto, and Kurashidoi, and Franz, and all these other wonderful people who are passionate, committed to it. And I just want to see us continue, as the Reiki continue. And that means that from the association point of view, not everybody is eligible to join it, because we have built ourselves to be a leading Reiki association. We're a peak body. I've been called upon many times to explain about Reiki. So a member of police officer coming and emailing, I had this complaint from a client about this fellow doing Reiki, taking over her mind, and all sorts of weird stuff.
Something else is not right.
Oh no, it wasn't. And I researched it, and I came back and I said, look, I educated him, if you like, and that's the word I like to use, what Reiki is, and what Reiki is. And then I said, this chap is doing, from what I can read, is this, and that is not Reiki. He followed up on it, and they ruled out Reiki as being the cause. But it's still out there. People who call things Reiki.
There's some weird Reiki stuff. But,
Yes.
Yeah, I think the right people keep promoting and putting it right there, so it was more take. And a lot of people, like I've noticed a lot of people who do know about it, like people are asking for it, or someone has recommended, so the word has got out there. Yeah.
I have seen a phenomenal growth in the awareness of Reiki and Reiki being as a modality for treatments. I've seen phenomenal growth in it over my years. I think I'm in my I'm going into my 19th year as president. So.
Yeah, and that's a long time. And that's where I like to point out too. It's not just your running association and done all this. It's all volunteers. Nobody since 1997, and I joined maybe about 2004. So I remember when John first came in, swapped over. No one gets paid. That's mega. Like no one does that these days. That old school stuff has gone out the window. No one wants to do anything for free anymore, let alone held to that level.
Well, I think that's where the passion comes in.
Yeah.
At one stage, when I was in Hills, I got involved with many different groups, and I used to say at one stage, I have a medical condition called volunteeritis.
Okay, I like that one. That's catchy. That's going in my toolbox. We're putting that one in there. Yeah.
But it's something, and it's down to no matter what group I was involved with back then. And I was a liaison. I became the president of the local business network, and I was a liaison then with the Shire, the council. And I remember a time around the time the NDIS and the NDIA were coming in, and there were experts from the fields and providing these services, and they were talking about the struggles and that, and I, as I am prone to do, I started talking to this group of experts, different fields about Reiki. I could see the skeptics, but I also saw one or two people interested. And there was one representative from New Zealand who said, I'm really aware of this, and I'm so glad you spoke about it. And and I think that's what it's about. You say teaching. I remember saying to somebody, to overcome the skeptics, to overcome the ignorance, we may not do that, but at least we can educate people about what it is and what it's not.
And people come and try it. If they like it, they come back. And they tell me, and that's what's beautiful. It's like you can just hold the space for them. They'll tell you what they get out of it, or you don't need to know, but if they do, that's great. You don't have to say you're going to get this, I'm going to feel this.
Exactly.
And I even had someone told me once that they saw someone, and they said, the whole time I told him, I'm going, so do you feel good? Are you feeling calm?
Yes.
What are you feeling? Are you feeling calm? It's like, what do you mean? Tell me what I'm feeling.
Right back
now,
to my first
right now,
experience.
I'm feeling like I can't breathe because they've got 100 crystals. Like they said, they put this cloth over with 100 crystals and that, and you're going, I can't breathe. Because and the whole time I was kind of concentrated on that, and had experienced Reiki somewhere else, so they knew that wasn't Reiki. And then so that him going, so how do you feel? And then he flies and he's in. Does it feel calm? Like, yeah, you are. You get it. It's like, you couldn't get that quick enough. But that's not how it is at all,
And I think I find that's also, understandably with human nature, it's the ego takes over.
Yeah.
And suddenly, sometimes you'll hear Reiki practitioners say, I did this, and I did that, and I did that. And no, you didn't do it, you facilitated it. You were a channel for it, the Reiki, for the energy. The clients did it. The recipients did it.
And that's true, but it's also, I think there's an element when I look at everyone out there, there's an element of that person and what they're doing themselves.
Yes.
And how much they're working on their inner to how much something happens. Because I look at it like I look at it in terms of my thinking. Like if you rock up to a community centre, you go to a hairdresser, and there might be 5 in there. One butchers your hair, one might be okay, and you always go to one because it comes out looking okay and not looking like a water or something.
Yes.
And so you can learn a whole lot of hairdressers who can learn the same thing, but there'll be, maybe it's one that's just got that right knack or right knack for you, or maybe it's just they're working on their practice or craft a lot better. So, I think the more, like I know, especially therapies and Reiki people, guys who really sit and do meditations or look at the traditional Buddhist teachings or other sort of stuff, they think they're running the world. But, if it's someone else's typical service, whatever, you can tell the difference between people. Although there's an element of that, like you said, but there's also, I think, an element of those people, it's like any kind of therapy work. Those are really sunk their time in it and really not just learning on theory, experiencing and practicing every day, not just talking about it, not teaching you, say, hey, go out and practice every day, but don't.
yourself. You know, those who are really walking their talk, I think that you feel that something more shifts in a bigger way.
Absolutely.
Really.
And I don't remember Sensei Hayekton says, Reiki, put your hands on and surrender. Just do that. And it's a simple way of explaining things. But it's just allow the energy. And as we all say, you don't even have to believe in it to do things.
And I think that's lovely too, like, because the more as I got older and the more I learned, the more I delved into other things and big things in this space, you started realising, okay, let me go all that attention, I don't have to put all this thing in, you know, and asking for this and that, whatever, just being that open mind space, have no outcomes, no expectations, and there's something else, something more transformative. It's rather than the other way in the early days going, please something happen. Please get something. Oh, I found a sensation. I'm really excited. You know, and we started letting them go and just behave. Oh, whatever. They get something. They tell me. You know.
I think this is where I have been fortunate, guided, or whatever, because during those 2.5 years of living in the moment and in the now, I didn't know about stress, I didn't know about worry, fear, doubt, anything. I just lived my life as it was, as best I could. I'm surrounded by loving, caring people who guided me and protected me, and I learned, and I observed, and I listened.
Yeah.
Listening is huge.
Yeah, and following it. Like I kind of came to, it's like breadcrumbs. It's not always the body and the mind, it's something else. It maybe just you get shown to do something and you become a breadcrumb, another one, and all of a sudden, oh, I actually needed that. And then something I'll never want to your mind worries, your bodies and everything else just seems to fall into place now because it was something else that was causing you to be upset.
Well, that's always the case. And, I mean, I've done life coaching as well with clients, and sometimes they would say, they did this and he said that and he did that and it just caused me to do, you know, and I'd say, okay, when did you last feel like that? When that happened. Then we work at, you know, and sometimes, not every time, but it would be something that happened in childhood that triggered a reaction and a feeling, and people carry it through their life. So sometimes when somebody says or does something and they react and they go, all of this, it's actually the subconscious saying, oh, I remember she felt like that when that happened. In an instant, it's all there. And so I think one of the other great things about Reiki is that it just restores the balance and allows relax. So there you go.
Yeah, wonderful.
That's my journey and my ongoing journey.
Yeah, it's a lovely story. Lots there, you know, just even the fact that you kind of, you know, it's a very cool when you go into that amnesia and then for being in such that long time coming out of it. But then I like that it has this space because I've done other practices where you're trying to be in that emptiness, openness, no void, because when you are from a mindset, when you've got stuff in your head, you think you know something limited to the stuff in your head. So it's interesting how you said that, going, oh, that resonates with me, because yes, you're unlimited because you didn't know any better. You know, and you go, okay, I can be anything. But it's just amazing, you know, you came out of that and then also coming to Australia and there's the opportunities and then becoming part of an association and even all the stuff that you've done in that and even your own practice and healing on people. Like, it's loads there.
It's been a journey.
It's certainly
been a journey. And I'm blessed because I still, I tell people I don't stress or I don't worry. I prefer to use the terms concerned. Or, like, I mean, there are many different levels of stress. I'm human. I've had good days and bad days. But I always remember back to my space, to my other world, my time. And I can center. And I'm blessed that that happened to me.
Yeah.
And I remember my daughter at the age of 14, when many other things were happening, and she says, Dad, everything happens for a reason.
Very
That has stuck with me, good, bad, and different. Everything that has happened has brought me to where I am today.
And it's so wise for a young teenager. Like very wise word. Yeah.
She's a very talented, wise daughter. Mind you, she got her singing voice from her mother.
Yeah. Oh wow.
She's a singer,
Yeah.
records her own music, what
Okay.
have you. So,
Oh awesome.
but again, music can be healing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like her first album was 14 songs of personal stories,
Wow. Yeah.
and they were healing.
Yeah. Lovely.
So it's all good.
So have you got any parting words or wisdom you'd like to share?
Oh, I have.
Probably yes. That's all right. Keep going.
Just be. We are human beings, but just be. Be in the moment. Allow yourself to feel whatever's going through your mind and breathe. And for Reiki practitioners and Reiki people, it's just remember, hands on, Reiki on. Hands off, Reiki off. But it's with us. So, I hope somebody listening to this will feel a desire to experience a Reiki treatment. So, thank you.
Lovely. And thanks for sharing and chatting with me today. It's been awesome. Your journey is amazing, and I'm sure you do many more. But just even like to say thank you for all the effort that you've done for Australian Reiki connection, because that's massive. You usually don't have someone sitting with you that long. And also volunteer, and also going to those lengths, and even just the things that you presented along the way, going to the ministers and the health funds and all those sort of things. That's changing dynamics of what we have today, and we wouldn't have that had you not been yourself and getting other people on board and relevant sort of happen. So
And aware others as well.
yeah,
You know.
to get, but it takes somebody to make a voice, to
Yes.
sort of give it a push, and then others come on board. But people don't take the effort to start it. They go, they all talk about it, but then no one does it. So we need someone to drive it, and then I'll get some other people involved to make that happen.
When I've tried to get people to come on board and consider taking over the role of president, they say, but I don't have the time.
Yeah, and that's
And I say, I'm just making the time.
yeah, and it is a tough one. It's a tough one.
But I accept it is a tough one, and
Yeah.
I'm Irish, so the Irish are known to be determined.
Yep.
But I think the way we're running the association now, and the way the other parts of the team, like Tony has been working on the administration end of it, and we're getting all of it streamlined, and there's more plans for the coming year to make more of the back end of things streamlined, so that when somebody else comes in, the work will do itself. I mean, the groundwork has been laid for my building days, the foundations have been laid, now we just have to build upon them. We won't put a lid on it or a roof on it, we leave it open.
Yeah, absolutely. Leave it open. That's great. It's perfect. So are you still working in business at all?
No, I retired 3 years ago,
Okay.
and I have never been as busy.
Oh, so are you still doing Reiki treatments? or
No,
is that-
I'm not
yeah.
doing
Okay.
Reiki treatments. I am doing distant healing
Okay.
at requesting and with some of my regular clients.
And can someone find you? Are you still got a business inside?
No,
Or is it
I've
just your...
I've closed
you know,
down my
what is-
business.
Okay.
My
Just your inner circle. Yeah.
my life is now the Australian Reiki connection.
Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough. I thought I'd just check because if someone would like to see you and stuff, or if you're in that space.
No, but you can phone the ARC office for. I get so many phone calls. It is so emails and phone calls for many different people that wanting different things.
Yep.
As I said, listen.
Yeah.
I've seen a great demand recently for distant healing, and we have a distant healing book, and you can make a request through the website. And there is not one day. There was 4 today, 6 yesterday, and some of the requests for the healing, it's heartbreaking. People are doing it tough.
And maybe that's a good thing. If you are looking for someone, try getting on the Australian Reiki Connection website. There's a good directory there of people from every state in Australia, and distance can be worldwide as well. So feel free to check that out as a first resource where you can look for somebody. And if you want to be helped, if you've got some time and would like to help, there's always need for volunteers. Like, you may not want to be the president's job, but you certainly, you might have good social media skills, or maybe there's a bit of admin. There's always some sort of paperwork or different things, or even things that you can hold to help promote. Many hands make it much lighter, and can help in all sorts of ways. Even if it's a few hours a week, I'm sure that somebody, if it was in my youth, I could have certainly helped out.
I always say, every little helps, and people don't have to be on a committee to do it. We have lots of projects and plans. We just haven't the time to push it out. Like, currently we have 5 members on a committee, and each doing their own thing. The bulk of the work happens in the ARC office. That's not a 9-to-5 role.
No.
It can be long hours, and it can be 7 days a week. It's almost like being self-employed again. But like I said, it's worth it. Now, I do take time off.
Yeah,
I do go
I'm
places.
glad.
I do enjoy theatre.
Oh, lovely. Well, hopefully you get rewarded in some other ways. But even admin jobs, there's always something funny seeing that someone can do up a spreadsheet or tidy some piece of work up, that you just don't have enough hours in the day to do all the other little bits and pieces.
That end of it, we're pretty much tight now with what Tony and Lee has done. We've got someone coming in to take over that role now. So that will just speed up. But as you said, social media, marketing. I'm editor of the Arc Inc. in-house magazine. It takes up a lot of time too. So anybody out there who's Reiki stories, research, I'm always looking for research.
Lovely.
Anybody who has editorial skills, give me a call.
You just get good English, there might be an English teacher.
Look with word tune, Grammarly, spell check. Don't worry. I like people to write as they speak. And if it needs tidying up, it'll just be a tidying up. It won't be a changing. And that's what's important.
Lovely. Well, it's been such a blessing to chat. We've had many things here, so I'll be awesome to listen to this later in the recordings. You can hear it a lot more. I look forward to that.
Well, I'll be more than interested in listening because I'm speaking off the cuff.
I know, this is done ad lib, so I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but we got an Irish here, so they're good at speaking. So you're now bound to get a story of some sort. I'd love to hear, is there something that you got out of today? Or maybe you've got a Reiki story or something that resonated with you. I'd love to hear about it. Put a comment below. The more we share all the positive things that it does, I think it's just a really, to me, just a nurturing, calming sort of energy. And who couldn't deal with that, so it's worth giving a go and worth trying. Peace to you all, and keep shining your light. Bye.